Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Be Iconic. I'm Lisa Franklin, and no stranger to any of you is Dr. Udine Harry, board certified medical and integrative wellness expert. She's been delivering a healthy dose of True Serum to women across the country. She's an author of 3 books, most notably the namesake of this show, Be Iconic. Dr. Harry, welcome. It's great to have you today.
It's good to be back.
I know we're having a little bit of storms in Florida, so that's not going to stop us from having a great show today. So we were talking last week, and you were mentioning that so many individuals you're finding that they're getting sick from while you're engaging in outdoor activities. And so with summer in full swing, the process to staying healthy has, even in the midst of this pandemic, has become a little bit more difficult. While no one knows what this new normal is going to look like, we do know that a lot of the activity that individuals are able to do is stemming from outdoor activities. And so today we're going to focus on summer safety tips. So I wanted to ask you to kick it off and explain a little bit about some of the tips or outside activities that you would recommend are kind of your top 4 or 5 key favorites.
Okay, so let's start off by saying, so the CDC tells us, right, it's better to be outdoors than indoors. And even if they didn't, summer is a time that we want to be outside. We want to have fun, especially after we've been cooped up for so long. So it's really important while we are enjoying the sun that we still keep in mind a lot of our summer safety tips that we have to do every summer. So we're in Florida, so we know that the summer heat is intense here, but it's also intense in other places in the country as well. So ultimately, what I want to say here is when we're out in the sun, we really need to be really careful and cognizant about protecting ourselves from the damaging rays of the sun, right? So things that we have to be concerned about is not only sunburn that many of us are concerned about. I'm going to caveat here. People who do have pigment and people of color are also prone to sunburn and sun damage. So please don't think that we're immune to that. So when we're talking about summer safety and we want to protect our skin, first thing we want to think about is how we engage in summer safety. So we want to wear hats because we want to protect our heads. We want to wear sunscreen. This is really important. And we want to put sunscreen on about 20 to 30 minutes before we go outside. So the sunscreen starts being activated so it becomes effective. When you're out, you need to understand that reapplication of sunscreen is also at times necessary if you're going to be out in the sun for an extended period of time. So those are some summer safety tips. The other thing that we want to pay attention to is heat exhaustion. Now, we in Florida and other places, when the sun is out, all of us have seen people out jogging in the middle of the day. And the ER physician in me is going, what are you doing? So it's really important to pay attention to that because you can suffer from heat exhaustion. And heat exhaustion really, and what happens with that is that ultimately the body loses the ability to regulate the internal temperature. So think of it this way. If the body loses the ability to do that and things start heating up on the inside, your organs kind of really start heating up and cooking. So that's basically what you're doing. So some of the signs and symptoms of that, if you start getting headache, you start feeling dizzy, you start experiencing muscle cramps, and you start getting really thirsty, you start getting really lightheaded. These are signs that perhaps you've been out in the sun too long and that your activity level really needs to be dialed back. So at this point, what I want you to do is immediately stop whatever activity that you're doing, go indoors, hydrate, and cool down, because you definitely don't want to get to the point of a heat stroke, which then becomes an emergency at that point. Other things to be concerned about if you're doing a lot of activity outdoors, and things that we can do right now are jogging, right? We can go outdoors and we can have picnics with our family, and we can still play games with our families, and so we can do whatever sports that we're doing. So keep in mind that your hydration status is really, really, really important. And so what's recommended is that every 15 minutes or so, you stop and hydrate. It doesn't mean you have to guzzle a bottle of water or a sports drinks every 15 to 20 minutes, but it does mean that you should probably pay attention and start sipping. If you're feeling thirsty, you're probably way behind in that. Other things are that most of us like to hike, right? I'm not talking like strenuous hiking, trying to climb Mount Everest. I'm never gonna do that. But just hiking through nature, enjoying it, stopping, smelling the flowers and all of those things. But this is a time that we really need to be concerned about ticks, right? And tick-borne diseases. So we're talking about Lyme disease and other diseases that ticks can transmit. And so when we are hiking, we need to pay attention, perhaps walk in the middle of the path, maybe away from tall grass. This is where the ticks tend to hang out, and they can attach themselves to you and then transmit disease to you. And so a couple of things: wear light clothing so you can identify them if they do attach themselves to you. Make sure that you're well covered. Other tips are wear insect repellent with DEET, 20 to 30% is recommended. The other thing is that you can actually treat your clothing with a special repellent as well, so that it repels ticks. When you get home, when you're done, immediately take everything off and do a tick inspection. If you can't see your back, have somebody look at it for you. So ultimately what you're looking to and checking and to make sure nothing is attached, immediately take a shower. Because if ticks are attached for less than 24 hours, the chances of them transmitting a disease to you is very, very low. So they usually need to be attached for more than 24 hours. So doing all of these things can really protect us from getting infected by tick-borne diseases while we're outside enjoying the great outdoors.
Love it. So I want to ask a question about hydration first. So when you talk about hydrate, there's, a lot of different waters, a lot of different type of electrolyte drinks that people can consume. What are kind of your tips on, especially if someone is feeling as if they're already dehydrated, the first thing that they should do?
Okay, so water is really the best choice. Now, if you've been out, you're a pro athlete and you're really working it out, you're going to lose some significant electrolytes. So you might want to consider hydrating something, sodium, potassium, that kind of mix. Even maybe a little bit of magnesium. Most of us in our daily activities, even when we're enjoying the summer fun, don't really lose the electrolytes that we require, that requires us to consume a lot of those sports drinks. The other thing about a lot of those sports drinks, and I see people drinking them a fair amount, even when they're not out doing strenuous activity, is that they are also high in sugar. So you have to pay attention to that as well. So I say go to water first for hydration. If you really absolutely cannot stand the taste of water, and there are those of us who really have a really difficult time just drinking water, do some fruit infused water. That's usually pretty good. You can have your water. There's so many containers now where you can really keep water super cold, or at least very chilled, and you can add some fruit slices. So it kind of gives it some flavor, some flavor for you.
Sounds good. And so let's talk a little bit about social distancing in the midst of all of this. So I know there's a natural response for most people because they want to eat while they're out, they're on the trail, they want to grab a bar, water, you pull down your mask. What are some tips for how far you need to be away? What's considered allowed in taking off your face mask while you're out doing these activities?
So if you're in a group that you live with, then you're in a group that you live with. When you're out interacting in public spaces and trails, it's really recommended to maintain a distance of at least about 6 feet. That's basically what the CDC has decided. Wear your mask as much as possible. And of course, when you're eating and drinking, you're not going to be able to do that. It's really super difficult. I've seen some masks that's kind of created for that, but that to me, I'm not really sure that's going to be effective. So basically wear your mask as much as you can, maintain a 6 feet distance, especially from individuals that you don't live with or interact with on a daily basis. So on many trails right now, many of them are pretty empty. Some are still even closed, but even those that are open. So you do have space to really enjoy the trail and enjoy nature.
Hey. Now let's talk a little bit about the hygiene tips for being out. So obviously you don't have water to wash your hands. And when you think about it, there's all these high touch items. So what is allowed? Should they just bring sanitizers? Can they sanitize their items with the sanitizer? Wipes? What do you recommend as kind of some key tips to take with you so you can continue to kind of keep up with the CDC recommended hygiene?
Right. So definitely carrying hand sanitizers with you. And remember, the CDC recommended hand sanitizers that are at least 60%. Now we're saying about 70, 90% alcohol. Using those kind of hand sanitizers, so everyone has one of those. You can take sanitizing wipes as well to wipe down the surfaces that you may touch. The CDC recommends to try to avoid touching as many surfaces as you can. But of course, if you're hiking and you want to sit down, the odds are you are going to sit down. So wipe off the surfaces and benches if you can. That's really important to do. Again, if you have drinking water, you're probably not going to use that to wash. So hand sanitizers are really important here. Some people actually wear gloves, but here's the thing with gloves is that you have to think about them as your hands. So you have to wash them and sanitize them as well. So wearing a glove it doesn't make the glove is not immunity. So you can't touch everything with the glove and feel that is perfectly okay and then pick up something to eat. And then it's the same thing as using your hands to do that. If you're touching something, for example, if you're going out, you're pumping gas and you use a glove to do that, then you dispose of that glove that you've used and dispose of it properly.
Well, that makes sense. Now let's talk about swimming, because according to the CDC, there's no evidence that COVID-19 can be spread through humans and through water, right? Correct? So, but swimming and other water-related activities are so refreshing during the summer. They're fun. They're healthy ways to get outside and get physical. But what we do know is that there are a number of different risks with being out in the water. And if we think about, I know back in May, we saw where a standout football and basketball player, UAB recruit, Jamari Smith, perished and died in the water, swimming in the lake with friends. Most recently, Naya Rivera, out in a lake in California. What are some things that you have noticed specifically during the summer that kind of lead to individuals maybe not understanding the dangers, even if you're a great swimmer, the dangers of being in a pool, a lake, a body of water, that you think they need to be hooked to?
Okay, so what we need to be aware of when we're in a body of water, even if we're fantastic swimmers, most lakes are regulated and we must, for example, in the lakes in Orlando, if we're out enjoying the lakes, wear a life jacket. And that is really important. I would usually recommend as well, try not to do these as solo activities because you almost want to have somebody watching your back because unexpected things can happen, right? So you can experience a cramp, you can become entangled in something. And if you're out there on your own, you really have no one to reach to or call to at that point. And even though you may be a strong swimmer, again, things may happen that you may not anticipate. So it's really important to think about. For other people who are out in the lake and or on any body of water and you're enjoying the sports activities, just be aware of the people around you, especially if you're on mechanical things or you're on jet skis and those kind of things. Be cognizant of the people around you because some might be out boating, and you want to really be aware of your surroundings, and you want to be aware does it of the lake that maybe you're using. Does it have like a high content of like weeds that you can probably get entangled in? You want to stay away from those areas as much as you possibly can. So we all want to enjoy our summers. Water, like you said, Lisa, is so refreshing. Our pools are so refreshing. I know oftentimes if we're at the pool with our children, always keep an eye on them, even if they're strong swimmers, because they can accidentally hit their head and just be thrown off. And so many things can happen, so many accidents happen that we cannot, of course, prevent everything. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying if we are aware as much as possible and we're aware of our surroundings and we're keeping an eye on others, then we can enjoy the summer more safely.
Okay, so now we're going to go through just a round robin of a certain number of activities, and I want you to give me kind of your first thought. So from a doctor's perspective, when you hear someone's doing this, what's your first thought? Okay. So the first thing is biking.
Biking. I like biking. Actually, I think you can bike on trails. I think it's a great family activity. I think you absolutely need to wear a helmet when biking. And I intend to encourage people not to bike in traffic because that can become really concerning because you're then competing with the motorized motor vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really important that you wear a helmet. It's really important that you be aware of your surroundings. It's really important that if you are biking with your family, with children, that you're able to keep an eye on them while you're biking as a family. So I think biking is a great activity because you can adjust the resistance, etc. You're enjoying nature, you're moving along a little bit faster, but just wear your helmet.
Hiking.
Hiking. I love hiking as well. Like I said, I'm not really going to climb Mount Everest. I've hiked up a volcano before, and oh my God, that took me about 5 hours. It was just really a lot. But so most hiking activities for me now are pretty mundane, but I love hiking because there's so much to see. And I've been hiking in California before. Those trees are amazing and magnificent to look at, and nature really kind of brings us down. There's study after study after study that tells us how important nature is to our well-being, and hiking is a great way to enjoy it. Just remember the tips we talked about earlier. And the one thing I want to mention here, if you do, for example, see a tick that's attached to you, there's a proper way to remove it. You want to make sure that you have tweezers, hold it as close as possible to the skin because you want to get the jaws that are embedded in there. And so you want to really be able to clasp around the jaws and gently dislodge it.
Jogging.
Jogging, not for me, but many people do enjoy jogging. I think jogging can be a great activity. Again, if you have issues with your knees or your hips, that it might not be something that you might be able to enjoy. But believe it or not, there is a proper form for jogging. So for our runners out there, you'll make sure that you're using the proper form. Enjoy jogging. Proper shoes, really, really important because you're putting a lot of pounding and you want to have the shoes that protect your knees and your joints when you're jogging.
Okay. Tennis.
I love tennis. I'm horrible at it. My husband plays a lot of tennis. I think tennis is a great activity here because you're definitely 6 feet apart, right? And you're really kind of tracking a ball. So it's a great hand-eye coordination sport. It's fantastic for hand-eye coordination. And that is so important for all the other things that we do in our lives. So I love tennis. You're chasing a little ball. You're getting a lot of aerobic activity and your brain and your body is really working hard. So I love tennis as a sport.
Now, in Florida specifically this summer, we saw a number of people, even when cities were shut down, playing golf. So what do you think about golf and the golf courses?
Yeah, I think golfing it's definitely an activity where people get to communicate with each other and relax and some downtime. It's also hand-eye coordination because you're aiming for a hole that's mile away and there's a little ball in the hole. So it's not an activity that I particularly enjoy, but I can absolutely see where golfing can be a stress management tool, also great for hand-eye coordination. There's a lot of torquing involved with golfing, so sometimes there can be some back injuries. So be aware that there's a form associated with this as well. So and also it can be like a solo sport. So it might be a great one, especially for this time. Everybody has their own golf cart, or they can be walking about 6 feet apart. Everyone has their own golf clubs and balls. So all of that can be really a great activity, especially in this time.
Okay, last one, water sports. So parasailing, tubing, boating.
Water sports. Enjoying the water sports a lot. I see a lot of people doing that. The thing for me is like safety issues. Again, as an ER physician, I always, when I look at things, it's unfortunate for my kids, but I always see like injuries, and so I'm thinking, oh yeah, saw that person with that kind of injury. So ultimately, when you're water sporting, just be aware of the others around you and what their activity is. Some people might be doing a high speed activity, some might be doing a lower speed activity. Those two of those collide, that can really not look great. Be aware. So also some activities in lakes. There's been some concern lately about, again, freshwater amoebas and along those lines. So it's important to be aware of what particular body of water you're doing that with. But in water activities, just make sure that you are safe. For me, parasailing is never going to be a thing.
I agree with you. Too many things to think about. So you mentioned something I just want to go back to, because I want to make sure everyone hears this part. You talked about ticks. And a lot of times when you're outside, there are a number of different bites, mosquitoes, different things that you may not know, you may not realize that you've gotten bitten. So when should someone be concerned? You look down at your arm or your leg and you see where you have a bite. When does that become concerning where they need to, actually seek medical help?
Okay, so you're right, Lisa, you can be bitten by many things, and most of them, apart from being annoying and itchy, they usually run their course. You do some Benadryl and cool compresses and you're usually fine. If you start noticing the skin changing, or you start noticing breakdown around the skin, you start having other symptoms such as nausea, abdominal pain, other symptoms, those are things that suggest that maybe you may have been bitten by something to be concerned about. So we're talking about the gnats and the mosquitoes, and perhaps even spiders here are some concern as well. So if you're noticing some systemic symptoms, nausea, headache, muscle pains, etc., and if you're noticing areas around the bite that started having some necrosing, if you're noticing, for example, Lyme disease has this particular rash in a good majority of patients, not all of them, called a bullseye rash that literally looks like a bullseye. If you see some sort of a rash like that, it's really important that you go to your physician. Of course, if you start experiencing allergic type symptoms, difficulty breathing and swelling, that's definitely an emergency and needs to be addressed immediately.
So, and just so everyone knows, I know that we have a lot of questions around which mountain I think you hiked. So we'll drop that information below, and we'll actually show a little bit of pictures of that after this video. So Dr. Harry, you'll have to share for everyone really interested. I don't know about 5 hours, but everyone is really interested to know more. Listen. With all of these, I think the main thing is really about just using good judgment and being safe. And I've heard you say that over and over again. And so we'll drop some tips below about the different, to your point, ticks and different bites and things that people need to look out for. As we wrap, when you think about preparing, packing your bag, getting ready to go out, what are the top 3 things that you make sure that you have in your bag heading into an activity, especially during the summer?
Top 3 things are: I make sure I have sunscreen. Hydration is really, really important. And believe it or not, something to protect the head or the face. So whether that be, I like hats. I think hats do the job really, really well, so they can protect the eyes. You can add some sunglasses to that. You limited me to 3 things, so I'm going to have to.
I like 3s. With the sunscreen, really quick before we leave though, what's the SPF on that? What do you recommend?
Okay, so SPF, there's really no need to go above 30 in SPFs. No, but research has said is really not particularly significantly more effective. And also keep in mind that sunscreens do expire, y'all. So you can't have a sunscreen in there that you've opened half a couple of years. It's not going to be good anymore. So you do have to get new sunscreen.
That's why the sunscreen didn't work. I never knew that it expired. That's a great thing. All right, well, we're at time. So Dr. Harry, just want to leave with your one last gem.
As we are enjoying the summer, because we're in the middle of the summer and it seems like it's really going to be a super hot one. So summer might last a little bit of a while, as they say. Yeah. So be safe out there. Do the things. We're in the middle of also this pandemic as well. So it's really learning how to balancing our mental health, because it's really important that we get out for our mental health and our physical health. And part of our physical health is also being aware of others around us and doing things to protect not only ourselves, but to protect others as well.
Thank you so much. Well, if anyone wants to learn more information about how you can meet with Dr. Harry directly, you can visit her at www.drharrymd.com. Web address is at the bottom of the screen. You can also join her Facebook group. Dr. Harry, do you want to talk a little bit about your Facebook group, Be Iconic? What people can
so the Facebook group, Be Your Own Icon. And by that, I mean, be good to yourself first. So it's a group where the ladies can come and feel comfortable asking questions that they may not feel comfortable asking generally. It's a place to come where we can support each other. If you have a particular thing in mind that you want to talk about, because a lot of our topics here are relatively general. If there's something in particular you would like me to talk about, this is a place that we can do it on the group. And it's a place that we really want to feel safe. We want to feel inspired, encouraged. And so come by and take a look at it.
It's a great accountability place, ladies, as well. Just being able to kind of set your goals out in front of everyone else and have someone, even like Dr. Harry, help you through that process. So I encourage you guys to, while the group is still open, to search it on Facebook and join while we have the opportunity. Like, it's always a joy to spend this time. Wealth of information. We'll definitely post as much information in the chat below. But again, thank you guys so much for joining. We'll be here again next week. And until next week, laugh, love, and be iconic. Thanks again. Bye, Dr. Harry.
Bye.